believe. Because for it to survive, you literally need more and more people to not gain their ethics from the church. They need to get it from the modern state, which means basically they have to become less religious. That's why modern states work.
Yeah, I agree. Like in a sense, the saying, "Follow religion the way we want you to follow it."
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's still good in the sense that compared to like most theocracies, like baptizing, you must grant me that.
No, I disagree.
You disagree?
No, if it was me, the U.S. would still be under the British Empire, and Britain would still be absolute monarchy.
I forgot who I was positing this question.
It's like insane. Okay, what is that cross that you guys
Wait
have?
a second, do you support the Anglican Church?
Yeah.
They're better in terms of like, I preferably a Catholic monarch, but yeah, I would rather live under a traditional Anglican society than a lot of what supposed claimant Catholic societies offer.
What about like a South American Catholic society becoming dominant in Northern America?
Well, I mean, that would be amazing.
Why just move to England, Sultan? Why are you sticking around?
Yeah, why England? Shouldn't they be like traitors to you?
Well, because, okay, no, it's not. Number one, I have to consider civilizational continuity between myself, Americans, and, the next logical thing that should be ruling them. That's not,
The British ruling America is the next logical choice.
In terms of civilizational continuity with America, yeah. I mean, no one here is like Spanish.
That's bollocks. That's a lot.
What are you talking about?
Almost
20% of the population of the United States has some Latino roots.
Perfect, and the majority of the United States does not have Latino roots. Now, I would prefer the Spanish or the Portuguese. 100%, right? The old Spanish.
The point is there really is no ethnic majority in the United States. Like, seriously, unless you consider white people a monolith, you really can't get there.
No, but there is a plurality at the basis.
Can we get
there is a plurality in the very least at the basis
like we from the Caucasus.
Heritage Americans. Right, so most heritage Americans do descend from like the British Isles, of course.
Exactly.
But my bigger problem, Sultan, with you is that okay, look at the modern Anglican Church.
The modern Anglican Church is even more vile and disgusting than anything that
Okay, great.
They should take control of it.
But hold on. But yeah, so that's the problem. Is that, let's say, for example, hypothetically, that America stayed under the British and the Anglicans while they were still traditional. As they reformed and became like this, flag-waving, hawks that they are, what do you do with that?
No,
the hierarchy of the church there.
No, I'm the
hierarchy of the church will try to maintain its position of power, even as it undergoes reforms.
No, I understand, and that's why my ideal, I would just say that the Vatican should rule the whole thing. But I have to consider, the civilizational continuity. What people here would find civilizational continuity, right? Like the fact that most people aren't Catholics here, things like that. So I'm giving this as sort of, all right, where things can be salvageable.
You kind of feel like English should go to the Anglicans, that kind of thing.
No, not even necessarily that.
What about Australia? Should they be under Anglican rule?
I mean, if that would be better than what they're currently under. Same with the British, same with Nigeria, same with all these places.
What about Ireland?
I would prefer Ireland being under traditionalist Anglican rule than current.
Anglican, not Catholic.
Modern Ireland has no Catholic values left. The very ideology of revolution stems from silly Marxist.
I see. You say they'd be better dealing with all the other Anglicans at a singular Anglican church.
No, yeah. There's a reason the Pope came out and condemned Irish revolutionaries harshly. Not because he liked, the Anglicans, but because he was like, you guys are so divorced from any sense of Catholicism that, we have your movement has nothing to do with us at this point, so go figure stuff out.
I see. So you think all the offshoots of the English interpretations of Christianity should amalgamate under the Anglican crown?
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you.
fuck.
No, I mean, I would respect the Anglicans more if they said that, yeah, there should be, like, the fact that they don't understand there needs to be, like, an infallible church. I mean, I do think their ideologies are false, right? Which is why I love the Anglican Church. But the fact that they don't even claim this, for me, is, like, an issue.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that you started as an Anglican.
Yes, I was born Anglican.
Can you tell? But truly, like, where do perennialists fit in all of this?
You don't fit. Not in the sense of, like, oh, we get rid of you from society, but you have no say in how society is ordered.
Yeah. One day it's gonna be us ruling you all, bitches.
No, I think my bigger issue is you're not
Ooh, the Epicureans? No, they're just gonna have kick-ass gravestones.
Rules over time.
Wait, sorry, what did you say?
My bigger issue is that the hierarchy of the church will reform.
Yeah, I'm not deleting your comments. It's the other people that realize what a bully.
Yeah, no, and that's why, like, like for instance, if the Anglicans.
Yeah, Emrose, like, quit it. Come on. Like, let's be mature.
It's really
Ugly, bitter, old, spinster.
Yeah, there's a 51-year-old
By the way,
woman,
this kind
and
of
I
proves
look
what I was trying
perfectly
to say
great for
earlier.
a 51-year-old woman, and
You see, if these
if you
were
want
men,
to comment on my looks, we'll see how you look when you're 51.
I'm kind of starting to wonder how old Emrose is.
see, if these, she's a millennial. If these were men, they would have just, forgotten about it by now. Because you're women, you prolong the conversation longer than it is. My bigger issue is that, like, the church will reform over time, will change its rules over time. No matter how traditional that you are, no church, including the Eastern Orthodox, which is probably closest to, like, its originality as you can get, no church will continue to enforce the same rules over time. Right? Everybody's bound to some sort of reform.
Yeah, no, reform in terms of, like, laws, right? But the issue is that your ethics, they have to remain constant. Now, your church has that. My church has that. The Orientals have that. The Protestants massively dropped the ball with that. But yeah, when you open the door to actually our ethics to fluctuate altogether, that's where you get this. No, I mean, I like take the Soviets. I don't like the Soviets. I don't, pretty shitty society. But they did understand the need of, like, absolute order. There has to be a power that governs society that really the majority of people don't question why it's there. Otherwise, society doesn't work.
Well, is it perhaps that there was no need for the ethics to reform because they weren't really in control of anything, really? Like, it was within the ethical framework of traditional churches to accept slavery.
Yeah, but slavery isn't the issue in and of itself.
It wouldn't be slavery, like, obviously it would look. I'm so sorry, it's. Don't you hold to the freaking manumission concept even within, like, Christianity, where slavery wouldn't be like the transatlantic. It would be more like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying transatlantic necessarily, but just the concept of one human opening another. That was within the ethical framework of traditional churches.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it still kind of is, right?
Yes.
So would you say that in a modern day society ruled by this hierarchical traditional church, we would still have the concept of slavery alive and well? Wouldn't that be problematic from an ethical standpoint given modern day society and how, our ethics are?
No, it wouldn't intrinsically be. It's as long as you understand that, human beings have to be accorded their natural rights. So if you take, for instance, the abolition of slavery in the Catholic New World, right? Spain versus in the Protestants. So in Spain, right, in Latin America, they actually started much, much earlier. But not because they just said, oh, slavery is just wrong altogether, but they said that you cannot treat human beings like this, right? Regardless of whether one is a billionaire or the lowest of the lowest servant, right? He has his natural rights. And any system that violates his natural rights, right, we can't sustain it. So you didn't have, like, the hard line, like, oh, we're going to get rid of slavery whatsoever until, like, the...
Alright, Emrose, you're being really, like, obnoxious. I'm sorry. I love you, but maybe, like, Get some sleep.
I don't think Cora's fat.
Yeah, this is really not nice.
Well, I mean, she's just in the chat, you know.
Like, quit
let her
it.
be in the chat.
Yeah.
Been kind of angry today.
Yeah, but just let her be in the chat.
Yeah, I just looked at. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the Spanish Empire ended slavery because the British told them to do so.
No, well, that's the
Yeah.
thing. That was what I would. So in terms of the hard line bans,
Hold on, Sultan. Sorry.
yeah.
If anyone, if she asked who removed her, it was me, Buttercup.
Okay. Anyway,
Obnoxious.
in terms of the hard line bans,
Obnoxious.
yes,
It was just
those-
Obnoxious.
in terms of hardline bans on slavery, yes, those didn't exist until the 1800s. But right from the 1500s, you saw a general culture of, we're manumitting slaves, we're setting them free, very gradual but like consistent reduction in slave populations, increased raising of standards of living for slaves, all from the 1500s all through the 1800s. Now, in the Protestant society, right, where you don't have this natural law framework that applies to all human beings, right, that's where you end up with like the hardline, super fucked chattel version of slavery, and then you just need like this hard break of like, okay, we're just gonna get rid of slavery altogether, right?
I don't know, man. Slavery.
Back again. Benny, can you address the freaking principle of it with him, if you don't mind?
Well, that's what I was going to go to. Like, even if I were to concede to your point, I don't think it's true that like slavery was getting better all over the Spanish Empire from the 1500s to the 1800s. Forget that. The point is that the principle of owning another human being, right, was permissible and still is permissible in traditionalist Christian hierarchies, and pretty much all actually traditionalist religious hierarchies. That principle is not acceptable within most of the world due to secularism.
Or fucking justified reasons, Sultan. Like, and I'm speaking of it as on an objective standpoint. The very principle of ownership of another, right, is so freaking absurd. And this is not coming from opinion. This is coming from like even a theological standpoint. If God is that creator God, who is the best of planners, whose ownership is the only ownership a human would kind of point to, the very ideology of being owned by another dependent, freaking potty-going human is absurd.
No, it's not. Because again, once you establish that there are limits to autonomy, and everyone agrees that there are limits to autonomy, otherwise we live in literal anarchy, right? Then the question just comes is, what is your personal preference and how far these limits to autonomy should extend? Now, as it is, we already have, we live in societies where people are compelled to do labor against their will in a fashion that we find completely okay. Now, whether you want to define them as property of another, that's just a legalistic and semantic definition. But yeah, this is why the real, modern objection to slavery is weak, because it has less to do with the material conditions of the human and more to do with things like individuality and individual freedom. But we as a society already limit those when and when not convenient for us. So those are just preferences.
No, but gradation is kind of important with that regard.
That's right. You'll play it.
Yeah, like we're not opposed to the principle of having sex, right? But we are opposed to the principle of having sex with minors, having sex with the same genders, having sex with certain individuals. So it's not just a matter of limiting autonomy.
Yeah, but those are hard ethical principles, right?
They're not.
Well, yeah, it is. It is wrong. Yeah, yes, it is. It is wrong to have sex with minors in all places.
Yeah, but it's not wrong to have sex.
No, of course not.
Yeah, so that's the freaking gradation.
But in this case, is it wrong to limit autonomy in all places, in all times, in all cases?
It depends on to what extent are you limiting.
Exactly. Okay, perfect.
Therefore, the gradation.
Is it wrong to have sex? No. Is it wrong to have sex depending on the scenario?
Okay,
Yeah,
is it wrong to compel people to work in all places, in all times, in all places?
No.
Not necessary.
Okay. So
Whilst
It's the same thing. Is it wrong to have sex in all people in all places?
no, but these are the actual issues of slavery, right? When we say that, oh well, you're someone's property, this is just a legalistic term. I mean, I can literally just.
You do understand there's no gradation there, right? Like, even if I say that I'm a slave to love, I'm a slave to freak in the corporate, even if I have to go give you such a pragmatic example such as that, I still have my volition.
I'm back, baby.
There's still fucking the autonomy to leave unless I'm bloody chained to the door.
With everything. You can't be stateless, for instance. Like, you're literally not allowed to be stateless.
No, you're allowed to be stateless.
No, I don't think you are. If you, there was actually something I was reading about this. It had nothing to do with Palestine. But I remember checking that, yeah, if you're born with, like, literally no citizenship of any nation, you have, like, I mean, you're allowed to be, like, stateless in the sense of being displaced, right? But you have to have some type of, like, national citizenship of some nation.
Like for traveling?
No, I mean, just in general, right? So that, like, people can identify you with something, you know? But I mean, even if my example is wrong, there are things that you do have, you know, you're not allowed to be, right?
Such as what?
I can't drink, I can't smoke under the age of, 18.
Yeah, but that's the gradation again. You can smoke, you're just not allowed to smoke under a certain age.
At a certain age,
You can't do drugs, you can't do certain drugs.
in a certain geography, in a certain, like, all these accents start to build up as you keep going on. It will come with variables. The thing with slavery is there are no variables, and the only point you can make in its defense would be you can own my body, you can own my property, you can own my children, you cannot own my thoughts. This would be the only refutation that one could make
But no one's
against it,
claiming
right?
their own thoughts. We're saying that, yeah, we can force you to do labor, and we can do that with regular.
I don't think you're getting the principle of it.
No, it's legal ownership of a person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you have a high degree. So one individual has a high degree of autonomy for another individual to the point where
Not a high degree, a complete autonomy
Okay, but
in
that's
every sense of the word.
we already have a system where people do have high degrees and literal complete autonomy over another individual.
Doesn't make it right.
It's called you don't think parenting is right?
Doesn't. Oh my God! Surely
No,
you're
you
not.
don't think parenting
Surely you're not comparing.
No, because
even with parenting in modern societies, you don't have. There are limits to what you can and can't do.
You do realize.
Just like in slavery, as
What?
practiced
Like what?
by natural law, there are limits to what you can and can't do. I can't make my slave kill himself. I can't mistreat my slave. I can make him work, but yeah, I can't whip him. I can't beat him. I can't punish him like arbitrarily or even really at all.
Yeah, sure. Sure. So under like these various ethical laws, right? Which I grant in a sense that no theology would kind of want you to be barbaric towards another human being. However, the potential of it going bad is so imminent, right? Simply because of human condition, and this is something. Yes.
But that's not unique to slavery. The same potential literally exists right now in like voluntary work. People get abused all the time at work.
No, the same potential exists for parenting.
It's even worse. Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. So ultimately, when you consider all those factors, the issue with slavery comes down to the legalistic, someone owns you, but that really is just like, okay, how much individual choice do you have?
How much does he own you? Fuck, man. When your self-worth and human dignity falls under freaking the microscope, and when you're looking at it as an onlooker, you're basically seeing a kind of transaction between human to human, and this is what makes it so ethically wrong.
No, not true. That's
that I have a value, that I have a price.
That's a
No, but actually, that's how parenting works and all.
although that's actually a Marxist and view of the world. That's actually why Marx has labor value theory, because he actually believes that humans can literally be reduced to efficiency and price values. But no, my view of the world says that no, you do have value as a human being, which is why you cannot be abused, can't have cruel treatment against you. All those ethical abuses, we cover them, right? But we can compel you to do certain things.
Do my children pay for it if I were to be a slave to someone?
What do you want?
Do my children pay for it?
What do you mean pay?
In the sense that, do they immediately take the role of slave? Do they inherit my status as a
Well, I
slave?
mean, I think that's all. Again, these are preferences.
Traditional
Serfdom. Yeah. So, this is how serfdom worked, right? Serfdom, you inherited serfs. Now, I'm not saying slavery should be brought back, because I do think that,
Good Lord, I denounce this.
No,
I condemn it.
Hold on, Marcus. Do you condemn monarchy?
I do condemn monarchy, yes.
Okay. At least you're condemned. Because, the thing is, you can be born into monarchy.
Exactly.
Inherit the kingdom.
Yeah.
It's the same principle.
Unless, however, it is still done in the guise of freedom, right? However, monarchy that entails good children, good upbringing, a just, compassionate ruler. In that sense, I would say it would be a positive stance. The same principle.
That's actually my worldview. So my worldview says that ultimately authority comes from God. Why from God? Because he's the ultimate source of goodness. So if you do not uphold the ethics, morality, blah, blah, blah of God, then it's time for you to go. Time to leave,
So listen, I get it. However, in a democracy, right? How Plato introduced in the Republic, the philosopher king here is truly a king in every sense of the word, but his kingship comes from wisdom and virtue, etc., etc. So, using such principles, you can call it perhaps a monarch, right?
It is a monarch.
Yeah, it is a monarch in that sense of the word, but in the sense that, I have to take up a negative, a freaking role in which my potential could have been actualized in a much higher form, rather than being a slave. You can't get higher than a king. You can't get higher than a philosopher king.
You can become a god.
The problem, right?
You call me king any day.
The problem with freaking slavery is that it starts you off at T0 at a freaking negative value. It starts you off at a negative. So,
Peasant.
yeah, a plebeian. And there's no freaking way of building up from here, in the sense that it is a role assigned to me much like the caste system. Much like the class system.
The issue is individual liberties. That is really most people's critique of slavery. But individual liberties is not an ethical good, or it's not a moral issue per se. It's a preference, right? Because we limit individual liberties all the time.
Cora, what do you
like to cut? Can anybody like to cuddle?
No, I'm weird. I was saying that that's a sailor.
Does anybody like to cuddle?
I love to cuddle. I'm a big cuddler. But
Cora, what do you think
I'm
of
always
this issue
a
of
little
slavery is limiting individual freedom, and we limit the individual freedom of our children as parents? Therefore, actually free equals justified.
I mean, it depends. Are you a good parent or a bad parent too? That's the question. I think most parents seek to maximize the total amount of lifetime freedom that children are able to exercise. So they might protect them in some cases in order to preserve their life, so that they could, continue on into the future and have more free choice in future years. I think that good parents seek to actualize their children and not, mold them into something that isn't necessarily in alignment with their desires or preferences or character. So unless they're like psychopaths, but you know that's very rare that you get an actual child that's a psychopath.
So you're placing like freedom at the pinnacle, basically.
I think that it's much like you look at anything. There's a sliding scale between liberty and welfare, right? You got to balance both. So you have to give up some liberty in order to maintain your welfare. And the key is finding the optimal sort of balance of the two in any given sort of environment and situation.
So what if the optimal balance or equilibrium between liberty and freedom is enslavement?
You mean welfare?
Well,
I would say that it would depend on the terms of the enslavement. If the enslavement is something like you had, okay, let's put it this way: some Romans had slaves that they actually allowed, or not allowed, but like encouraged to gain high levels of education, become medical doctors, and that was their really from where they were coming from, that was their only path to that level of actualization. But they also treated them like professionals. The downside was that the person that quote owned you, right, got all your earnings, right? But they also ensured that you were always cared for and were always able to, practice and learn and do all of that kind of stuff. But that's a really rare form of slavery. Most forms of slavery are basically debasing and oppressive. They're based on chattelizing the person, like treating them like livestock, harming them, that sort of thing, and that's not a good kind of slavery at all.
So under the Roman form of slavery, let's say like optimal conditions, right? You think
that's optimal Roman slavery. But see, that's the thing, is like you had to have the right person that was like the quote slave master, right? They had to be affluent. They had to value your intelligence and intellect and worth as a human being. That's, some Romans, right? Not all Romans. Then you could be a Roman slave where like the actual word slave comes from, Slav, where you're in a frickin' Czechoslovakia and a Romanian salt mine, being worked to death and dead by the time you're 30. So it's not. Yeah.
Wait, so you're saying under certain conditions, slavery could be justified?
No.
I don't think I think that there are better ways to get to the same outcome, and that when you allow for slavery in a legalistic sense, you're creating the conditions under which the negative forms of slavery could come up. I don't see any way that you could legalize slavery and not have any oppressive or debasing, outcomes for people. There's always going to be people that use it for that end.
Yeah, but you can say the same thing about parenting. There's some people.
Yeah, as I said, there's bad parents out there. But the thing is that we can punish bad parents, or when children become adults, they can, like I did, right? They can go no contact with their parents. They can say, "F you, you're not my parent anymore."
Can I call you mommy?
Yeah. Okay. Can we punish? Can we punish bad kings?
Yeah.
Bad masters?
Yes.
Well, maybe not kings, but let's say slave owners.
Nargis is not in the last mood to ever done right.
No, I'm just thinking.
Who does like egregious human ill? She should be
I'll
punished.
try again later.
They should be punished, but the problem is that if you are able to control the labor value of that many people, you start to amass capital, you start to amass power, and you start to become less punishable by nature of your political and social and economic capital.
Yeah, but we're speaking theoretically, not practically.
Yeah.
So theoretically speaking, slavery is not necessarily unequivocally wrong or objectively wrong. It can be good. It can be justified. Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying in very rare cases, people have done okay by systems that allowed slavery, but I don't think that the slave system was set up with that intent in mind.
But she's basically agreeing with me. Yeah, there are.
In some ways, yeah. I mean, she's also putting clothes on her, right, Sultan? Like similar to what you're putting.
But yeah, that's why in traditional Christianity, we don't just wholesale say that, okay, slavery is bad. Most forms of slavery, yeah, we actually say are bad. But there are, like Cora mentioned, exceptional, uncommon cases where, yeah, actually, this is fine. But the reason, like I said, largely has to do with the material conditions of their natural rights.
Well, and I think the thing is that you can accomplish the same ends without having the slave master arrangement, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you really care about, if someone really wanted to be a patron of someone, they could, like there's no need for the slavery sort of legalism to be in place for those things to occur. And so that's the thing. I just think that, in the case of like Romans, they might have happened upon a slave that they took, a particular, care of and everything. So, yeah.
No, of course, right? It's just that, like, because we're just speaking theoretically, and this is why, like, as a religion, we don't say that, okay, slavery is just irrevocably, indisputably bad. Like, for instance, I do think that, okay, so my church,